May I sit there, please?
The cafe went strangely quiet, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes your heart beat louder than it should. A single whisper cut through the noise, trembling yet brave. Can I sit here? Just for a minute? She stood there on one leg, holding her crutch like it was the only thing keeping her upright in a world that had already decided she didn't belong. And across from her sat a man everyone recognized. A CEO powerful enough to end careers with one phone call. People expected him to ignore her. Some expected him to be annoyed. No one expected what happened next. And if you stay with this story until the very end, you'll understand how one small moment can change 2 lives forever. If stories that touch your heart and restore your faith in humanity matter to you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, Hopeful Stories. Your support helps us share hope with the world. The CEO had been staring at his laptop for nearly an hour, numbers blurring into each other, profit graphs rising while something inside him sank deeper than ever. He was surrounded by people, yet painfully alone, trapped in a life where success had become loud, but meaning had gone silent. When he finally looked up and saw her, the irritation he expected never came. Instead, there was shock, then something unfamiliar, awareness. The girl stood awkwardly, her balance careful, her eyes lowered as though she had already apologized 1,000 times in her head just for existing. Her missing leg wasn't immediately obvious, but the way she leaned, the way her skirt fell unnaturally, told the story without words. Around them, the cafe hummed again, but quieter now, filled with curious glances and quick judgments. Some people felt pity, others felt discomfort. A few looked away because it was easier than acknowledging her humanity. The CEO hesitated for only a second before gesturing to the chair opposite him. He said calmly. The word felt heavier than it sounded. She exhaled, a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding, and carefully lowered herself, murmuring a soft thank you. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncertain. Rain streaked down the windows, each drop tracing a slow path like a memory refusing to disappear. She hadn't planned to speak, but something about his eyes, attentive, not dismissive, made her feel safe enough to be honest. She told him about the accident that took her leg, about the hospital rooms that smelled of antiseptic and fear, about learning to walk again, while learning that people now saw her differently. She spoke of job interviews where smiles faded the moment she stood up, of strangers who either stared too long or pretended she wasn't there at all. "I don't want sympathy," she said quietly. The CEO listened, not as a man used to being obeyed, but as someone being reminded how to feel. Her words cracked something inside him he had sealed off long ago. He thought of the things he had lost chasing success, his marriage, friendships, nights of laughter, the version of himself who once cared more about people than power. When she finally stopped, embarrassed by her openness, she stared at the table as if expecting judgment. Instead, he smiled gently and said, "You're beautiful." The words landed like a miracle. Her head snapped up, eyes wide, tears forming instantly, betraying years of quiet pain. No one had said that to her without conditions. Not a beautiful for someone like you, not a beautiful despite everything. Just beautiful. The cafe seemed to fade away. 1 minute passed. Then another. In that fragile space, 2 strangers unknowingly stepped into a moment that would follow them for the rest of their lives. When she finally stood to leave, she apologized instinctively, as though taking space was something she had to earn. The CEO shook his head. "You don't need to apologize for being here," he said, surprising even himself. She smiled shyly and left, her figure disappearing into the rain, but her presence stayed behind, heavy and unforgettable. That night, the CEO sat alone in his penthouse, staring out at a city he owned on paper, but barely understood in spirit. Her voice echoed in his mind, louder than any boardroom debate. He realized how many people he had overlooked, how many lives he had brushed past without seeing. Days later, he found himself returning to the cafe at the same time, telling himself it was coincidence while secretly hoping it wasn't. She was there again, this time already seated, looking smaller than before, like someone trying not to be noticed. He approached her table, and for the first time in years, he smiled without strategy. This time, he asked if he could sit. Their conversations grew deeper. He learned about her intelligence, her humor, her dreams of helping others who felt invisible. She learned that beneath his tailored suits and authority was a man burdened by regret and loneliness. Slowly, change followed him everywhere. At work, he began noticing people, really noticing them. He listened more. He questioned policies he once enforced without thought. He launched initiatives to hire people with disabilities, not as charity, but as acknowledgement of talent. He changed company culture, valuing dignity as much as profit. One afternoon, he offered her a position within the company, not as a symbol, but as someone whose perspective mattered. She hesitated, afraid of being judged, afraid of failing publicly. He looked at her with certainty and repeated the words that had reshaped everything. You're beautiful and you're capable. Months later, she stood beside him at a company event, confident, strong. She told her story to a room filled with powerful people who suddenly felt small in the best possible way. She spoke about asking for 1 minute and receiving respect instead. The audience rose in applause, some wiping tears, others reevaluating the way they saw the world. The CEO watched her, understanding at last that success without humanity was empty. As she stepped off the stage, she realized something profound. Losing a leg never made her incomplete, being unseen did. And all it took to change that was one man choosing to listen, 1 minute of kindness that became a lifetime of purpose. Backhand, index, pointing right, if this story touched your heart. Please like this video and subscribe to Hopeful Stories. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Because sometimes, 1 minute is enough to change everything.